What if everything you believed about success was a carefully constructed lie? What if I told you that every drop of sweat, every sleepless night, every moment of grinding effort was not bringing you closer to your dreams, but pushing them further away? This isn't motivational nonsense. This is the revelation of a forbidden technique, a code hidden for thousands of years by one of the most brilliant minds in human history. A technique so powerful, so fundamentally opposite to everything you've been taught, that those who discovered it were silenced, their teachings buried, their wisdom locked away. The promise sounds impossible. Achieve everything without forcing anything. Manifest your deepest desires without exhausting yourself. Win without fighting. But this impossibility is exactly why this knowledge was kept from you. Because the moment you understand it, really understand it, the entire game changes. The invisible chains that kept you running on the hamster wheel of endless effort simply dissolve. You stop being a slave to struggle and become a master of flow. In the next few minutes, you won't get productivity hacks or time management tips. You'll get something far more dangerous. You'll get the master key to reality itself, the exact technique that Thoth, the Egyptian god of wisdom, encoded into the fabric of existence. But I need to warn you right now. What you're about to discover goes against every fiber of your conditioning. It will challenge your identity as a hard worker. It will question your entire relationship with effort. And once you see it, once you truly see it, you can never unsee it. The old way of living will feel like sleepwalking, like being trapped in a nightmare you didn't even know you were having. If you're ready to stop pushing the boulder uphill and start moving mountains with a whisper, stay with me. Because this might be your last chance to wake up before the alarm clock of life stops ringing altogether. Our journey begins not in the pyramids of Egypt, but in the misty mountains of ancient China, more than 2,000 years ago. There, in the quiet corners of the Imperial Library, an old man named Laozi spent his days among scrolls and silence. He wasn't a warrior. He wasn't an emperor. He was a librarian, an archivist, someone the world considered insignificant. But Laozi possessed something far more valuable than armies or gold. He possessed the rarest gift in the universe, the ability to see. While everyone else was busy doing, Laozi was busy observing. He watched the water flow around rocks. He studied how the wind moved through the trees. He noticed how the bamboo bent in storms while the mighty oak tree shattered. And in these simple, overlooked patterns of nature, he discovered something that would change the course of human consciousness forever. He saw that nature never forces anything. The river doesn't struggle to reach the ocean. It simply flows, finding the path of least resistance, and yet it always arrives at its destination. The bamboo doesn't fight the typhoon. It bends, it yields, and when the storm passes, it stands tall again. Water doesn't attack the stone. It simply caresses it, day after day, year after year, until the hardest rock becomes smooth sand. Laozi realized that the entire universe operates on a principle that human beings had completely forgotten. A principle so simple it seemed absurd, so obvious it was invisible. The secret to achieving everything you want is not in doing more, but in doing less. The key to power is not in force, but in flow. Victory comes not from resistance, but from alignment. He called this principle Wuwei. In your language, it translates roughly to effortless action or non-action. But these translations fail to capture the full depth of what Laozi discovered. Wuwei is not about doing nothing. It's not about being lazy or passive. It's about something far more sophisticated and far more powerful. It's about perfect action in perfect timing. It's about moving with the current of the universe instead of against it. It's about understanding that there is an invisible river of energy flowing through all things, and your job is not to fight it, but to ride it. To the modern mind, this sounds like fantasy. We've been programmed since childhood to believe that success requires struggle. No pain, no gain, blood, sweat, and tears. Hustle culture, grind mentality. Push harder, work longer, force it to happen. This is the gospel of the Western world, the religion of effort, and it's destroying you. Because here's what they never told you. The harder you push, the more resistance you create. The tighter you grip, the more slips through your fingers. The more you force, the more you fracture. This isn't philosophy, this is physics. This is the law of polarity that Thoth himself encoded in the Hermetic tradition thousands of years before modern science stumbled upon it. Let me show you what I mean. Imagine you're trying to hold water in your clenched fist. The tighter you squeeze, the more water escapes between your fingers. But if you relax your hand, if you open your palm and simply allow the water to rest there, you can hold it effortlessly. This is the fundamental difference between force and flow, between the Western mind and the Eastern wisdom, between the slave and the master. Laozi's discovery wasn't just philosophical poetry. It was a practical technology for manipulating reality. And it didn't exist in isolation. Thousands of miles away, in the temples of ancient Egypt, another master was teaching the same truth in a different language. His name was Thoth. The Greeks called him Hermes Trismegistus, Hermes the thrice great. And what he taught became the foundation of all Western esoteric knowledge, the Hermetic principles. Thoth understood something that modern civilization has completely forgotten. Everything in the universe is vibration. Every thought, every emotion, every object, every moment exists as a unique frequency in the cosmic symphony. Your body is vibrating. Your thoughts are vibrating. Even the chair you're sitting on right now is vibrating at the atomic level. Nothing is truly solid. Nothing is truly still. Everything is energy in motion. Everything is music. This is the Hermetic principle of vibration. And once you understand it, really understand it, the entire game of life transforms. Because if everything is vibration, then achieving anything is simply a matter of tuning your frequency to match the frequency of what you desire. It's not about working harder. It's about resonating correctly. It's not about forcing outcomes. It's about harmonizing with them. Think of it like this. You're sitting in a room with a piano. You strike a key, let's say middle C. Now, somewhere across the room, there's a guitar string that's tuned to that exact same note. What happens? The guitar string begins to vibrate in sympathy. You didn't touch it. You didn't force it. You simply created the right frequency, and the string responded automatically. This is called resonance, and it's the secret to manifestation that every ancient tradition knew but modern culture forgot. When you're struggling, fighting, forcing your way through life, what you're actually doing is creating dissonance. You're playing the wrong note. You're vibrating at a frequency that repels what you want instead of attracting it. You're the desperate person at the networking event who tries too hard and pushes everyone away. You're the salesperson who reeks of need and drives customers away. You're the lover who clings too tightly and suffocates the relationship. The universe doesn't respond to effort. It responds to alignment. It doesn't reward force. It rewards flow. This is what Laozi meant by Wuwei. This is what Thoth encoded in the Hermetic principles. They were teaching the same truth from different angles. Stop trying to force the universe to give you what you want. Start aligning yourself to become a vibrational match for what you desire. And then, like the guitar string responding to the piano, reality will rearrange itself to match your frequency. But here's where it gets tricky. Here's where most people fail. Because the moment you hear effortless action, your mind translates it into something completely different, something toxic, something that will trap you even deeper than you were before. The trap has a name. It's called false passivity, and it's the most dangerous distortion of this ancient wisdom. The moment people hear about effortless action, about not forcing, about going with the flow, their ego performs a masterful trick of self-deception. It takes this profound teaching and twists it into a justification for doing absolutely nothing. Listen carefully. This is not what Wuwei means. This is not what Thoth taught. This is not the secret. This is spiritual bypassing disguised as enlightenment. It's the lazy person's fantasy dressed up in Eastern philosophy. And if you fall into this trap, you'll be worse off than when you started. False passivity looks like this. You hear that the universe will provide, so you sit on your couch waiting for opportunities to magically appear. You hear that if it's meant to be, it will be, so you avoid difficult conversations and challenging situations. You hear about surrender, so you surrender your power, your responsibility, your agency. You become a passive observer of your own life, waiting for some cosmic force to do the work for you. This is not alignment. This is abdication. This is not trust. This is fear wearing a spiritual mask. The universe doesn't reward inaction. It responds to clear intention combined with intelligent action. There's a massive difference between the patience of a lion waiting for the perfect moment to strike and the paralysis of a deer frozen in headlights. One is power held in reserve. The other is power abandoned. The Hermetic principle of mentalism states clearly, the all is mind. The universe is mental. You are not a passive recipient of reality. You are an active co-creator of it. Your consciousness, your thoughts, your mental state are the brushes painting your reality into existence. When you practice false passivity, when you sit back and do nothing, you're essentially handing your brush to someone else and saying, "You paint my life for me." And the universe, respecting your free will, leaves you exactly where you are, stuck, stagnant, slowly dying inside. True Wuwei is something completely different. It's not the absence of action. It's the presence of perfect action. It's the hyper-awareness of a martial artist who appears completely relaxed but can explode into movement faster than thought. It's the stillness of a chess master who sees 20 moves ahead while appearing to do nothing. It's the focused attention of a surgeon whose hands move with precision born from thousands of hours of preparation. There's tremendous energy in true non-action. It's the coiled spring. It's the drawn bow. It's potential energy waiting for the exact right moment to transform into kinetic energy. False passivity has no energy. It's the deflated balloon. It's the broken bow. It's not waiting for the right moment. It's avoiding the moment altogether. So how do you distinguish between the two? How do you know if you're practicing true Wuwei or falling into the trap of spiritual laziness? The answer lies in understanding two fundamentally different modes of consciousness, two different operating systems running in your mind right now, competing for control. The first mode is what I call controller mode. This is the voice in your head that never shuts up. the one that needs to plan every detail, manage every outcome, force every situation to bend to your will. It's born from the deepest human fear, the terror that if you let go of control for even 1 second, everything will fall apart. Your life will collapse. Chaos will reign. Controller mode is exhausting. It's the mind that replays conversations from 3 days ago, trying to figure out what you should have said. It's the anxiety that keeps you awake at 3 a.m., running through tomorrow's scenarios. It's the need to send that follow-up email, make that phone call, check that status update. It's the compulsive checking, the obsessive planning, the desperate attempt to nail down every variable in an inherently uncertain universe. Here's the cruel irony. Controller mode doesn't actually give you control. It creates the illusion of control while generating massive amounts of resistance, friction, and suffering. It's like trying to control the ocean by building walls. The ocean doesn't care about your walls. It will go over them, around them, or through them. And you'll exhaust yourself maintaining barriers that were never going to work in the first place. In Hermetic terms, controller mode is operating purely from the ego mind, the lower self, the personality trapped in the illusion of separation. It believes it's a small, isolated being in a hostile universe that must be conquered and controlled. It's the consciousness that sees everything as other, as separate, as potential threat or potential resource. It's survival mode, elevated to a life philosophy, and it's killing you slowly. The opposite state is what the ancient masters called sensitive observer mode. This is not passivity. This is presence. This is power. It's a state of radical curiosity combined with inner stillness. It's the consciousness that watches without judgment, perceives without projecting, responds without reacting. It's the mind that has stepped back from the chaos of thought and found the quiet center where true intelligence lives. In sensitive observer mode, you're not trying to control the river. You're reading the river. You're feeling its currents, sensing its depth, noticing where it speeds up and where it slows down. You're gathering information that controller mode, too busy shouting commands, completely misses. You're seeing opportunities that fear-based thinking blinds you to. You're accessing intuition that anxiety drowns out. This is the state Thoth called opening the inner eye, the eye that sees not with physical vision but with spiritual perception, the eye that looks beyond the surface chaos of the material world and perceives the energetic patterns underneath. When you operate from sensitive observer mode, you begin to see reality as it actually is, a flowing field of possibilities, constantly shifting, infinitely flexible, waiting for your consciousness to interact with it intelligently. The transition from controller mode to sensitive observer mode is the practical application of the Hermetic principle of correspondence, as within, so without. When your inner state is one of control, force, and resistance, your outer reality mirrors that with obstacles, conflicts, and frustrations. But when your inner state shifts to observation, curiosity, and flow, external reality responds by revealing pathways, opportunities, and synchronicities that were always there but invisible to your controlling mind. Now, this might sound abstract. How do you actually make this shift in real time? How do you know which mode you're in? And more importantly, how do you know when to act and when to wait? This is where we need a practical navigation system, a simple tool that translates universal principles into moment-by-moment guidance. I call it the traffic light system. Think of every situation in your life as an intersection with a traffic light. The light is always one of 3 colors, and each color is giving you precise information about the energetic state of that situation. Your job is to learn to read these lights and respond accordingly. The green light. You know this feeling. It's when everything flows. A conversation that unfolds naturally. An opportunity that appears at exactly the right time. A project that moves forward with ease. This is life telling you, go, the path is clear. Your vibration and the vibration of this situation are in perfect harmony. You're resonating with this outcome. At this moment, action is not only appropriate, it's required. This is your cue to accelerate, to lean in, to ride the wave that the universe just presented to you. When you see a green light, don't hesitate, don't second guess. Don't let your conditioning tell you that if it's this easy, it can't be real. That's controller mode trying to reassert itself. Green lights are the universe saying, yes. Your only job is to say yes back with your action. Move with confidence. Trust the flow. This is effortless action in its purest form. Then there's the red light. You know this one too. Probably even better. It's the feeling of pushing against a wall. The conversation that turns into an argument no matter how carefully you phrase things. The deal that keeps falling through despite your best efforts. The door that refuses to open no matter how hard you knock. This is resistance. This is friction. This is life telling you, stop. The red light is not punishment. It's not the universe being cruel or testing you. It's information. It's a clear signal that there is vibrational dissonance between your energy and the energy of this situation. Something is misaligned, and forcing your way through will only create damage, waste energy, and generate more resistance. The wisdom here is not to push harder. It's to pause, to step back, to go internal and ask, what within me is creating this external resistance? This is where the Hermetic principle of correspondence becomes practical magic. The red light outside is reflecting a red light inside. Maybe it's fear pretending to be confidence. Maybe it's ego pretending to be purpose. Maybe it's attachment pretending to be desire. When you encounter a red light, your job is not to fight the external obstacle. Your job is to find and dissolve the internal obstacle that's causing the external reflection. And finally, there's the yellow light. This is the most subtle and the one that requires the greatest sensitivity. The yellow light is neither fully open nor completely closed. It's the situation that could go either way. The conversation that's hovering in uncertainty. The opportunity that hasn't fully formed yet. This is the universe in a state of transition. The energy is shifting, the poles are reversing, and your role here is neither to act nor to withdraw. Your role is to watch with absolute attention. The yellow light is where most people make their biggest mistakes. They get impatient. They try to force the light to turn green. Or they get fearful and treat it like a red light, withdrawing prematurely. Both responses are controller mode, trying to eliminate the discomfort of uncertainty. But uncertainty is not your enemy. Uncertainty is the fertile void where possibilities are gestating. The yellow light is teaching you the art of patient readiness, the wisdom of waiting without passivity, the discipline of staying present without forcing. When you learn to read these three lights accurately, when you develop the sensitivity to feel the energetic state of any situation, you stop driving your life blindly. You stop crashing into walls. You stop wasting energy forcing doors that aren't meant to open. You become a conscious navigator of the flow, moving with grace through a reality that suddenly seems to cooperate instead of resist. But reading the light is only half the equation. What do you actually do when you encounter a red light? How do you respond to resistance in a way that transforms it instead of amplifying it? This is where we introduce the first technique of true mental alchemy. The move that separates the master from the amateur. The sage's pause. When you hit a red light, when you encounter resistance, what's your automatic response? Be honest, your first instinct is to react, to push back, to argue, to force, to fix. This is the programming running deep in your nervous system. Fight or flight, the ancient survival mechanism that kept your ancestors alive on the savannah, but now keeps you trapped in a cycle of unnecessary conflict and wasted energy. But the mental alchemist does something radically different, something that appears weak to the untrained eye, but is actually the most powerful move in the game. When faced with resistance, the master pauses, not because they're uncertain, not because they're afraid, but because they understand something fundamental about how reality works. They understand that the space between stimulus and response is where all power lives. This is the sage's pause. It's the deliberate creation of a gap between what happens to you and how you respond to it. It might be 3 deep breaths. It might be sleeping on a decision. It might be a week of reflection before having that difficult conversation. The duration doesn't matter. What matters is the conscious choice to stop the automatic reaction and create space for conscious response. In that space, magic happens. The hypnotic pattern of reactivity breaks. The spell of automatic behavior dissolves. You stop being a puppet dancing to the strings of external circumstances and become a sovereign being, choosing their response with full awareness. This pause is where you reclaim 100% of your power, the power that was given away every time you reacted without thinking, every time you let someone else's energy dictate your behavior, every time you allowed the external world to control your internal state. The Hermetic tradition calls this the retreat into the inner sanctuary. It's the movement from the plane of effects, the physical world where you're constantly bombarded by circumstances, to the plane of causes, the mental realm where reality is actually created. Every master, every initiate, every true adept knows this secret. Living in reactivity is living as a slave to effects. The sage's pause is the act of a king returning to his throne on the causal plane to decide with sovereignty instead of merely reacting with desperation. Thoth wrote in the Emerald Tablets, "Man is a star bound to a body, until in the end he is freed through his striving." But the striving Thoth speaks of is not the external battle against the world. It's the internal battle against your own compulsive reactivity. It's the discipline to not be swept away by the current of your conditioning, and the sage's pause is your weapon in this battle. It's the shield that protects you from the arrows of provocation and the sword that cuts the chains of impulsivity. When you practice this pause consistently, something profound begins to happen. You start to see your own mind in action. You watch anger rising, but you don't become the anger. You notice fear appearing, but you don't identify as the fear. You become the observer, the witness, the sky that watches clouds passing without being affected by them. This is the birth of true consciousness, the awakening from the dream of identification with thought and emotion. From this place of inner stillness, from this throne of calm power, you finally gain access to something that was always there but drowned out by the noise of reactivity, your deepest wisdom, your intuition, the voice of your higher self, your direct connection to the universal mind. This is not the loud, anxious voice of the ego. This is the quiet, knowing that whispers from the center of your being, and it always knows the right move. Always. Once you've established yourself in this inner sanctuary, once you've broken the spell of automatic reaction, you're ready for the next step. You're ready to issue the command, not a desperate shout into the void, not a forced manipulation of circumstances, but a clear, powerful directive issued from the silence of your being. A command that the universe, by law, has no choice but to obey. This is what I call righteous action. And it's completely different from the frantic doing that most people mistake for productivity. Righteous action is not about the quantity of your effort. It's about the precision of your intervention. It's about finding the leverage point, the exact spot where minimal force creates maximum impact. It's Archimedes' principle applied to reality. Give me a lever and a place to stand, and I will move the world. Think about it differently. Instead of having a 2-hour argument that leaves everyone exhausted and nothing resolved, righteous action might be asking one precise question that reframes the entire conversation. Instead of launching a massive project with huge risk and enormous effort, righteous action might be creating a small prototype that tests the core assumption with minimal energy and gives you the information you need to proceed intelligently. The power is never in the size of the action. The power is in the consciousness behind it. A master can achieve with a gesture what an amateur cannot accomplish with 1,000 efforts. Why? Because the master's action is the final manifestation of a process already completed on the mental plane. It's the physical seal on a mental intention already established in the realm of consciousness. This is the lost concept of the Word made flesh. In esoteric Christianity, in Hermetic philosophy, in Kabbalistic tradition, there's this understanding that true power lies not in physical action, but in the intention and vibration that precede and permeate it. When you act from controller mode, from ego, from fear, your action carries the frequency of desperation, and reality responds with resistance. But when you act from the sage's pause, from clarity, from alignment, your action carries the frequency of power, and reality responds with cooperation. Righteous action is the endpoint of an energetic circuit you've already completed internally. During the sage's pause, you went within. You found the internal misalignment causing the external resistance. You transmuted it. You shifted your vibration, and now the righteous action is simply the anchor point, the channel, the precipitation point for an effect that's already been shaped on the mental plane. The universe, being fundamentally mental in nature, doesn't primarily respond to your physical doing. It responds to the mental cause that gave birth to that doing. This is why you can work yourself to exhaustion and get nowhere, while someone else makes one phone call and changes their entire life. It's not about who works harder. It's about who operates from a higher state of consciousness. Practice righteous action, and you become a cosmic strategist. You stop wasting your life force on unnecessary battles. You start looking for leverage in every situation. You constantly ask, what's the smallest move I can make right now, from this state of clarity, that will generate the greatest wave of positive change? This question alone transforms everything. It shifts your entire orientation from brute force to elegant efficiency, from exhausting effort to intelligent action. You become a master of timing, precision, and energy conservation, the true hallmarks of real power. But here's where most people stumble. Even after finding their center, even after executing the perfect action, they immediately sabotage themselves with the most destructive force in the universe: anxious attachment to outcome. They plant the seed and then dig it up every 5 minutes to check if it's growing. They give the command to the universe and then drown it in a flood of doubt and worry. This is where the final piece comes in, the art of letting go. You've done the work. You found your center through the sage's pause. You identified the righteous action from your place of clarity. You executed it with precision. The seed is planted. The command is given. The circuit is complete. Now what? What does the controlling mind want to do? It wants to obsess. It wants to check constantly. It wants to manage how and when the result appears. And in doing so, it destroys the very thing it's trying to create. Think of an actual gardener. After preparing the soil perfectly, selecting the best seed, planting it at the optimal time, does the gardener then hover over that spot every hour, digging up the earth to see if germination has started? Does he try to manually pull the stem through the soil? Does he stand there commanding the plant to grow faster? Of course not. That would be insane. That would kill the plant. The wise gardener trusts the process. He waters the soil. He ensures adequate sunlight. He protects against pests. But he doesn't interfere with the mystery of growth itself. He knows that germination happens in the darkness, away from his controlling gaze. He knows that nature has its own timing, its own rhythm, and his job is to support that rhythm, not dictate it. This is the art of letting go. It's not giving up. It's not indifference. It's active, intelligent trust in the process you yourself initiated. It's the release of obsessive attachment to how and when your manifestation will appear. This is the alchemical principle of coagulation. After solve, the dissolution of the old, comes coagula, the solidification of the new. But coagulation cannot be forced. It requires an environment of trust and patience to form naturally. Your anxiety, your doubt, your worry, your need to constantly check these are like energetic acids you're pouring over your creation. They dissolve the manifestation before it has a chance to crystallize into physical form. The art of letting go is the conscious act of removing these acids and allowing your creation to form in peace. This is what true faith means in the Hermetic sense. Not blind belief, not hopeful wishing, but faith based on knowledge. The absolute confidence that universal laws like mentalism and correspondence are as reliable as gravity. You don't throw a stone in the air and then worry about whether it will fall. You know it will fall. It's law. Similarly, once you've established a clear cause on the mental plane, you trust that the corresponding effect will manifest on the physical plane. It has to. It's law. When you master the art of letting go, you free up enormous amounts of energy. Energy that was previously trapped in the exhausting cycle of worry and checking. This liberated energy can now be reinvested in being present, in noticing new opportunities, in enjoying the journey. You stop living in an imagined future, waiting anxiously for results, and return to living in the now, where life actually happens. These three movements, the sage's pause, righteous action, and the art of letting go, they form the complete cycle of conscious manifestation. But knowing the cycle and walking it are two different things. Because your ego, that master of self-preservation, will not go quietly into the night. It will create traps. Sophisticated illusions designed to keep you trapped in the old pattern while making you believe you're practicing the new way. The first trap your ego will set is the most seductive of all. It's the one we already named. But now, with your new knowledge, it becomes even more dangerous. False passivity. You learn about flow, about not forcing, and suddenly your ego whispers, "Perfect. This means I don't have to do that scary thing anymore. I can just wait. I can just trust. I can just be." This is not trust, this is avoidance. This is the demon of spiritual laziness wearing the mask of enlightenment. Don't have that difficult conversation, your ego says. That would be forcing things. Just flow. Don't start that challenging project. Wait for the perfect moment. Don't take that risk. The universe will provide when it's ready. But the universe is always ready. The question is, are you true? Wuwei is not an excuse for cowardice. It's not permission to avoid uncomfortable growth. The sage's pause is not permanent paralysis. It's temporary stillness before decisive action. There's a massive difference between waiting with readiness and hiding behind spiritual concepts. The second trap is equally destructive but opposite in nature. The tyranny of impatience. You taste the power of flow once or twice. You feel that magic moment when everything clicks. And now your ego wants that feeling on demand. It wants every interaction to flow. It wants every project to manifest instantly. It wants reality to bend to your will immediately. So it does something absurd. It tries to force the flow. It tries to create effortlessness through effort. It's like trying to force yourself to relax or commanding yourself to be spontaneous. The very attempt destroys what you're trying to create. You start manipulating conversations to create the feeling of flow. You pressure people to make decisions faster. You help the universe along by forcing outcomes. This is the demon of greed. The ego's compulsion to harvest fruit before it ripens, violating the sacred principle of rhythm. Everything in nature has a gestation period. Seeds don't become trees overnight. Babies don't skip the 9 months in the womb. Your manifestations need time to form in the invisible realms before crystallizing in physical reality. Impatience doesn't speed up the process, it aborts it. The third and most subtle trap is analysis paralysis. This is the favorite weapon of the intellectual mind. You learn the principles, study the techniques, understand the theory, and then you start overthinking everything. Am I in flow right now? Was that righteous action or ego action? Am I letting go enough, or am I secretly still attached? Did I do the sage's pause correctly? You become a commentator on your own life instead of a participant. Practice, which should be intuitive and alive, becomes a mental checklist. This is the demon of doubt. It's the lower mind, the analytical, logical mind, trying to understand and control something that can only be grasped through intuition, through the higher mind. The moment you start analyzing the flow, you step out of it by definition. These three demons, laziness disguised as trust, greed disguised as enthusiasm, and doubt disguised as wisdom, they guard the threshold between the old consciousness and the new. Every initiate encounters them. They're not external enemies. They're manifestations of your ego's resistance to change, its fear of losing control. Recognizing them is the first victory. Catching yourself in these patterns and gently redirecting is the daily practice of mastery. But here's something that might shock you. Everything we've discussed, every ancient principle, every esoteric teaching, it's not just philosophy anymore. Modern science, with its precision instruments and rigorous methods, has accidentally stumbled into the temple and confirmed what the masters knew all along. The proof is in your brain. Neuroscientists studying peak performance discovered something extraordinary. They call it flow state, that magical zone where athletes break records, where artists create masterpieces, where everything becomes effortless. And they found that during flow, something specific happens in your brain, a phenomenon called transient hypofrontality. Here's what that means. The front part of your brain, specifically the prefrontal cortex, dramatically decreases in activity. And what lives in that part of your brain? Your ego, your inner critic, your sense of separate self, your perception of time, your anxious planner, your self-conscious observer. During flow, during peak performance, your brain literally turns down the volume on your ego. This is not metaphor. This is measurable, repeatable, scientific fact. To enter your state of maximum power, your ego needs to quiet down. The sages' pause, meditation, presence practice, they're all training to consciously decrease the activity of this ego network. When you calm this part of your brain, you free up massive cognitive resources. Energy previously spent on self-doubt, worry, and overthinking gets redirected to creativity, intuition, and skillful action. You don't become smarter in flow. You simply remove the interference that was blocking your deeper intelligence. Flow state is the neurological signature of consciousness aligned with itself. It's the brain quieting so the higher mind can operate without static. Science hasn't discovered something new. It's simply mapping with its own tools the sacred territory that mystics and masters have walked for thousands of years. This means you're not dealing with belief systems or faith. You're working with how your nervous system actually functions. The benefits of Wuwei: increased efficiency, reduced stress, better decisions, harmonious relationships. These aren't vague spiritual promises. They're predictable, scientifically observable results of optimizing how your brain operates. But the real proof isn't in laboratories. It's in history. Who were the people who used this consciousness to accomplish seemingly impossible things? The master builders of the pyramids, operating from a state of alignment that gave them access to knowledge we still can't explain. The architects of Gothic cathedrals who encoded sacred geometry into stone. These weren't just skilled craftsmen. They were initiates channeling wisdom from the mental plane to the physical. Or look at Butcher Ting, the legendary Chinese butcher whose story was recorded by Zhuangzi. For 19 years he used the same knife to carve thousands of oxen. Yet the blade remained sharp as the day it was forged. When asked his secret, he said, "I don't see with my eyes but perceive with my spirit. I follow the natural structure, cut through the empty spaces, guide the blade through the openings." He wasn't just a butcher. He was a master applying the principle of correspondence to his art. He didn't see dense matter. He saw energetic structure. He perceived the spaces, the paths of least resistance. He operated from that level of awareness where action becomes effortless because it's perfectly aligned with the hidden structure of reality. This same pattern appears across centuries and cultures. Warren Buffett, one of history's greatest investors, says, "Our favorite holding period is forever, and we only act when the opportunity is obvious and easy." That's righteous action in financial terms. The patience to wait, the clarity to recognize the green light, the decisiveness to act when it appears. Michael Jordan, in his prime, described time slowing down during critical moments, seeing plays develop before they happened. That's the insight that emerges when ego mind quiets and intuition takes over. Bruce Lee teaching his students to be water, adapting, flowing, using the opponent's force against them. That's Wuwei, applied to combat. Jazz musicians entering states of pure improvisation where their hands seem to play without conscious thought. Elite surgeons whose movements flow with precision beyond what practice alone could create. Programmers coding for hours in total immersion, losing all sense of time. All of them, whether they know it or not, are accessing the same state. The same consciousness that Laozi described, that Thoth encoded, that every wisdom tradition points toward, they're accidental initiates. They stumbled through the door through extreme dedication to their craft. But you don't have to stumble. You don't have to hope for random moments of grace. The journey we're on here is about learning to access this state deliberately, consciously, consistently. It's about transforming a happy accident into a mastered skill. It's about making effortless action not a rare gift, but your natural way of being. All of this, the ancient wisdom, the modern science, the legendary masters, they all point to one final shocking truth. A truth so profound that once you truly understand it, once you feel it in every cell of your being, struggle becomes not just unnecessary, but literally impossible. This is the end of the intellectual journey and the beginning of true realization. Every moment of pain, every experience of struggle, every ounce of exhausting effort in your life has been based on a single fundamental error, a case of mistaken identity. You've always believed yourself to be the rock, a solid, separate entity trying desperately to resist the current of life. You took pride in your strength, in your ability to endure, to stand firm, to never break. But this identity, this sense of who you are, it was a lie from the very beginning. The truth that Thoth encoded, that Laozi discovered, that every awakened being throughout history has tried to communicate is this: you are not the rock. You never were. You are the river itself. This is not poetic metaphor. This is the most accurate description of reality according to every wisdom tradition that ever existed. The sense of being a separate self, an isolated ego trapped inside a body, fighting against a hostile universe. This is the primary illusion, the grand deception that creates all suffering. The Hermetic truth, the truth that echoes through Buddhism, Taoism, Vedanta, Christian mysticism, is that separation itself is the illusion. You are not a separate wave fighting the ocean. You are the ocean expressing itself as a wave. You are not a cell at war with the body. You are the body experiencing itself through the perspective of one cell. You and the universe are not two things in conflict. You are one thing appearing as two. You are an individualized expression of the all, a temporary focal point of infinite consciousness, a single note in the eternal symphony. Think about the absurdity of what you've been doing. It's a wave fighting the ocean. It's a ray of sunlight declaring war on the sun. It's complete insanity. But the insanity only persists as long as you believe the illusion of separation. The moment you remember, the moment you feel in your bones that you are the flow itself, the fight instantly ceases. How can you fight yourself? How can you resist your own nature? This is the forbidden technique. This is the secret Thoth left encoded in the mysteries. Mental alchemy, Wuwei, effortless action. It all distills down to this final act. Not an act of doing, but an act of remembering. Remembering who you truly are. Surrendering not to defeat, but to your real identity. Letting go not of your power, but of the illusion that you were ever separate from infinite power. When you operate from this awareness, when you stop pretending to be the isolated rock and remember you are the eternal river, everything transforms. The universe stops being something that happens to you and becomes something that flows through you. Opportunities are not things you chase desperately. They are currents you learn to feel and ride. Obstacles are not enemies to destroy. They are simply rocks that your own water gracefully flows around. Success is not something you achieve through force. It's something you allow through alignment. Abundance is not something you earn through struggle. It's something you permit through opening. Love is not something you capture through manipulation. It's something you experience through dissolving the barriers you created. Peace is not something you find by controlling circumstances. It's what remains when you stop fighting reality. By remembering that you are the river, you discover that you already are everything you've been desperately trying to become. You already have access to everything you've been exhausting yourself trying to obtain. The power was never outside you. It was you. The wisdom you sought was not hidden in ancient texts. It was looking through your eyes the entire time. The love you craved was not in another person. It was the substance of your own being. The ultimate technique is not about gaining something new. It's about removing the false belief in separation that blocked you from experiencing what was always true. This is why it's called the forbidden technique. Because the moment you truly get it, the game ends, the illusion shatters, the matrix dissolves. You can't go back to being the desperate swimmer once you've remembered you are the ocean. Now, knowing this intellectually is not enough. Understanding the concept is just the beginning. The real journey is making this truth alive in your everyday experience. This is where practice comes in. Not practice to become something you're not, but practice to remember what you are, to train your nervous system, to reprogram your conditioned responses, to build new neural pathways that support flow instead of force. This is why I'm giving you the 7-day flow challenge. For the next 7 days, choose one area of your life where you've been the rock, where you've been resisting, forcing, struggling. Maybe it's a difficult relationship. Maybe it's a career decision. Maybe it's a creative project that's stuck. Pick one area. For 7 days, practice being the river in that specific situation. When you feel the impulse to control, pause. Use the sage's pause we discussed. 3 deep breaths. Return to your center. Feel the difference between controller mode and observer mode. Ask yourself, where is the green light? Where is the flow already trying to happen that I've been blocking with my resistance? When you see the opening, when you feel that green light, execute righteous action, not massive effort, not exhausting doing, but precise, minimal, leveraged movement from a place of clarity. And then, this is crucial, practice the art of letting go. Plant the seed and trust the process. Water it with presence. Protect it with boundaries. But don't dig it up with anxiety. 7 days. One area. Be the river. Watch what happens. Watch how reality starts to cooperate instead of resist. Watch how solutions appear that your controlling mind never could have planned. Watch how the universe moves obstacles that you were exhausting yourself trying to push. This is not theory. This is practical laboratory work with your own consciousness. And here's what I want you to understand. Every single teaching in this entire journey, from Laozi's observations of nature to Thoth's Hermetic principles, from the neuroscience of flow to the legends of masters, all of it was pointing you back to this moment. The moment when you stop learning and start living it. The moment when knowledge transforms into being. If you've stayed with me until this point, if something in these words resonated in your chest, not just your head, leave a comment with the phrase, I choose to flow, not force. I want to see who truly understands. Who's ready to stop being the rock and remember they are the river, who's willing to step through the door that Thoth opened thousands of years ago. This might be your last chance to wake up. Not because the opportunity disappears, but because the longer you wait, the more hypnotized you become by the illusion of separation. The more invested your identity becomes in being the struggler, the fighter, the rock. And eventually, the call becomes so faint you can't hear it anymore over the noise of your own resistance. But right now, in this moment, you heard it. You felt it. Something in you recognized truth when it was spoken. That recognition is not an accident. It's your deeper self, your true nature, the river of consciousness that you actually are, calling you home, calling you to remember, calling you to stop the exhausting performance of being separate and rest in what you've always been. The forbidden technique of Thoth is not a technique at all. It's a remembering, and now you remember. The question is, will you live it? Will you be it? Or will you close this video, go back to your struggle, and forget that for a brief moment, you touched something real? The choice, as always, is yours. But choose consciously. Choose with full awareness, because this choice determines everything. Welcome home, River. Welcome home.